Thank you very much. Warm welcome to all those attending or viewing live on the Council YouTube channel, Hillingdon for London. I hope you all had a very good summer and we're back to business now. My name is Councillor Higgins and I'm chairing the meeting today. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible in the room and underneath the live broadcast. For those presenting in the room and attending to speak, please note that you are being filmed and any statement you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anybody speaking today that your voice will only be audible online if the microphone is switched on. We're not expecting a fire drill today, so if the fire alarm does go off, please follow officers out of to the room. Mobile and tablet devices, for those who have mobile devices, can you either put them to silent or switch them off? And you can notice that myself and other committee members are using their laptops to look at the papers in front of us as we have an effort to try to go digital. Okay, before we start, I'll go through the attendees. First, I'll start with my councillors. I have Councillor Adam Bennett, my Vice Chairman, welcome. Councillor Keith Burrows, welcome. Councillor Roy Chandel, welcome. Councillor Mand, welcome. Councillor Gaelic, welcome. And Councillor Singh, welcome. And my officers are Kate Crosby, Area Planning Service Manager North, Ed Loughton, Area Planning Service Manager Central and South, Chris Brady, our Planning Team Leader, Owen Canacon, Planning Team Leader, Alan Corcoran, Deputy Team Leader, Dr. Alan Tilley, Transport Planning and Development Team Manager, Jimmy Walsh, Legal Advisor, and Natalie Fairclough, Legal Advisor, and Brian Dell, who's from Democratic Services, that make sure that this meeting goes to plan. Right. We have no apologies for absence, as doing so. Any declaration of interest and matters coming before us? No? Okay, great. To receive the minutes of the previous meeting, are we agreed on those? Okay, thank you very much. We have no matters notified in advance or urgent. To confirm that all items of marked business marked Part 1 are considered, there is no Part 2 items. First thing is that item 7 has been withdrawn, so we will be looking at that next time we're here. So we'll get cracking straight on with item 6, which is 36 Moore Park Road. Owen, you are going to present this to us in the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Right, the item 6, the application seeks planning permission for change of use from existing C3 dwelling house to C2 care home to accommodate 4 children. As part of the scheme, it would also include associated bin and cycle storage. The item was brought forward to committee given a petition and also the number of representations received. Before I begin, I would draw your attention to the additional commentary in the addendum regarding car parking layout. Revisions to the overall car parking layout would be required to ensure safe manoeuvring within the site. A condition has already been included in the recommendation, condition 7, and our highways officers are satisfied that this can be addressed. Further comments have also been provided by a ward councillor on the proposal to be considered. Detailed response to the items raised by the ward councillor have been included within the addendum. So site location plan there, you see the site located to the north of Moore Park Road, and it comprises a 2-storey detached property. The property is in close proximity to St Martin's School to the west. The site is not within any designated areas, however it is noted that Dean Road area special local character does lie opposite the highway. As you can see, there is a bird's eye aerial view of the site, and that is the aerial of the property in question. You can see quite a large area to the front. There's also a detached garage to the western flank and a garden area to the rear. And this is the existing site block plan. And there is the proposed site block plan. Just to note, there's only two external changes to the property. That would be the cycle and bin storage, which will be located on the western flank adjacent to the garage. So again, here is the existing plans of the detached dwelling. It is a standard dwelling house with 5 bedrooms and living space on ground floor. And that's your existing elevations of the property. And the proposed plans, so in terms of the proposed plans, it does show the living quarters associated with the C2 care room located on ground floor. So you have kitchen, dining and living accommodation with a reception area to the front. The reception area will be used by the carers themselves for any visitations, etc. And then on the first floor you see 5 bedrooms, so there's no increase in the number of bedrooms. One of the bedroom spaces will be used for the carers who would sleep over at night at the site. And this is the proposed elevation. Again, the only change from the proposed elevation is the new bike store, which is positioned, you can see it there, positioned between the garage and the east elevation. And there you have your proposed roof plan. And also, in terms of parking arrangements, the site would be would have enough parking space for the care C2 use. Highways have been consulted and have raised no objections to this. So that's your proposed car park layout. And here is a picture of the existing property. As you can see, a large frontage, 2-storey dwelling set well back from the highway. Mature landscaping to the front, and an area of garden space as well. And this is the view at the back, which is largely well landscaped, with a garden space which would be used and associated with the children. This just gives you an extra slide, just giving you an idea of the distances between different transport links. As you can see, I suppose on the left-hand side, the nearest bus stop would be an 8-minute walk, and in terms of Northwood Underground, it's approximately 14 minutes, potentially 15-20 minutes walk, give or take. Right, in terms of the principle, although the scheme would lead to a loss of C3 residential, it would continue to provide a form of accommodation that is in general need within the borough. Both London Plan and Hillingdon Plan identify a need for care homes within the borough. The care home would provide a home for children between the ages of 12 and 17 on a full-time basis. This would include care workers 24 hours a day with 2 workers during nighttime period, and a minimum of 3 to 4 during the daytime period. A total of 5 bedrooms as shown on the plans, with 1 serving the care worker. Care workers' shift pattern would be a 3-day shift pattern with carers staying overnight. The proposed home would not lead to an over-concentration of similar uses and would fully integrate with the residential surroundings. Both policy and children's social care teams confirmed there is a need for this form of residential accommodation in the borough, and as such it would meet the exceptional circumstances test, which allows the loss of residential unit where it meets other policy requirements within the local plan objectives. Given the provision of additional homes facilities which meet the required need, the principle of the development is considered acceptable. In terms of design, the design changes are modest, as can be seen from the elevations, would not impact on the local character. In terms of neighbours' amenity, the main concerns would be noise and disturbance from comings and goings. The submitted information accompanied by several documents included a management plan, noise management plan and good neighbour policy. The documents include how details on the care home would operate, including visitations, policies on noise management and on training staff. The noise management plan provides protocols and procedures that staff will be trained in dealing with noise over and above what is expected. Given the nature of the property detached with the large curtilage both to the front and the rear, it is considered that there would not be an adverse impact on adjoining residents in terms of noise and disturbance. The majority of movements would be contained within the building itself and within the site frontage. A condition has also been attached limiting the number of children to 4. In terms of comings and goings, there is sufficient parking off-street as shown in the plans. The overall working pattern would also ensure that comings and goings from staff would be kept to a minimum. So sufficient space would also be available for those visiting the premises. As vehicles largely will be accommodated within the site curtilage, there will be limited impact on the wider neighbourhood in terms of comings and goings. As such, officers are satisfied there will be no adverse impact on neighbours in terms of noise and disturbance. The overall quality of accommodation is considered acceptable. Each bedroom meets the standards for a single bed occupant, with the ground floor entirely made up of living quarters with access to a large private garden. Highways have reviewed the application and raised no objection given the level of off-street parking. A transport assessment has also been provided which demonstrates that trip generation from the use would not be too dissimilar to the current use. Also, in terms of antisocial behaviour, a further concern related to crime and antisocial behaviour within the community has been raised. The fear of crime is a material consideration where evidence exists that the associated development would lead to crime. There is no substantial evidence that this use would increase crime or antisocial behaviour within the local community. The care home will be staffed with carers who will be trained to deal with children with emotional difficulties. Documents provided within the application, including the general management plan, good neighbour policy and noise management plan, provide more detail on how the care home would be managed and staff trained in dealing with antisocial issues. A complaints procedure is also included within the good neighbour policy if local community have any concerns with the use is operational. Based on the detailed information, officers are satisfied that there will be any significant safety concerns to warrant a refusal in this instance. Concerns have also been raised regarding safeguarding matters for the care home. If the application is granted planning permission, it would also be subject to further approval from Ofsted regulatory body for care homes to further assess both the company and the property suitability to provide care. The care home would also need to meet the Ofsted strict criteria for provision of such a facility, as this would be outside the remit of the planning assessment. The provider can only register the house as a regulated service with Ofsted once the planning permission is granted. Any grant of planning permission would form part of the application to Ofsted, and each property would have its own registration number. An informative would be attached reminding the applicant of this requirement. Overall, the scheme is considered policy compliant and recommended for approval subject to conditions.
Thank you, Owen. Katie, you want to add something to that?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to add a verbal amendment to condition 4 on page 46. This is the condition that restricts permitted development rights to change the use outside of from C2. There is a reference in that condition to the third floor of the building, and subject to condition 1, that's an error. Just for clarity, the PD would be restricted to the entirety of the building.
Thank you. We have a petitioner, Mr. Gupta. Would you like to come to the table, please? Who's doing his slides? Which of the officers are doing the slides? Owen, you're doing those? Okay, fantastic. Mr. Gupta, you have 5 minutes. We have a traffic light scheme here. You've got green, which is for 4 minutes. Amber means you've got 1 minute left. And red, I will stop you. It's not because I'm rude or anything. I just will keep you to the terms of what we do here. So whenever you're ready, as soon as you press that button, we'll start the timer. Of the microphone, otherwise you will not be heard. Okay?
Dear Chair and members of the committee, thank you for giving us the opportunity to explain our position. This petition reflects the concerns of local residents with 196 petitioners, many of whom have been living in the neighbourhood for decades. The applicants have, throughout their documentation, tried to airbrush the use as, there will hardly be any change and this will be just like any other family dwelling, but however, that is not true. This proposal will have a significantly detrimental impact on noise, both inside and outside the property, parking congestion, trip generation, the resulting carbon emissions, and constant disturbance to neighbors due to the comings and goings to this property, not only during the daytime, but also in the evenings and weekends. Looking at the number of occupants, if we can look at the first slide. At paragraph 727, the report says that the property would cater for up to 4 children with emotional and behavioral difficulties with a staff to adult ratio of 2:1 child will be maintained. This implies up to 8 carers for 4 children, and there will be other managerial staff and some other staff. However, this report assumes that there will be 3 car users only. It is based on 3 staff. This overlooks the ratio of carers proposed by the applicant 2:1. There could be up to 14 to 16 people in the property at any given point of time. Further, footfall from social workers and specialist support workers, as well as parents, friends of the children, has not been accounted for in the planning statement or in the planning report. All of this will add to the noise, parking, traffic, and CO2 emissions. This report's conclusions that are based on 3 carers rather than 8 are hence flawed. Moving to slide 2, looking at the parking spaces. The applicant states in their application that there will be 3 parking spaces in the front of the property and 2 additional parking spaces, which essentially is a garage. However, once 2 cars are parked in the garage, it will be difficult, if not impossible, to open a car door and get out of a vehicle. How practical is that? In fact, one of the bays marked in red is blocked by other bays. Paragraph 742 of the report says that the drive can accommodate in excess of half a dozen vehicles arranged in an informal fashion. The safety impact of jamming cars into the driveway has not been considered. What if an emergency vehicle needs to get to the building? Displaced on-street parking is therefore inevitable. Moving on to the aspects of noise, slide 3 please. The applicant states that A, children will have behavioral and emotional difficulties. B, they acknowledge that despite meticulous planning and care, children's behavior may occasionally fall below acceptable standards, resulting in the noise and disturbance. C, staff may need to use restraint techniques. When using restraint techniques, undue noise and disturbance will happen. Screaming and shouting from the children will be an inevitable consequence. There will be no remedy for neighbors. The noise control plan is merely words. It gives an email address to register a complaint, which they will look to resolve in 3 working days. They have also provided a link to a council's noise tackling page, but the council does not investigate domestic noises. In addition to the noise, there will be disturbance from the comings and goings to the property by the 4 children, up to 8 carers, social workers, health workers, and 4 sets of friends and family. We disagree with the paragraph 7.32 in the planning report. The footfall and in particular vehicular traffic that the property has will lead to the property having a feel of a commercial enterprise rather than a family dwelling. This will cause significant disturbance to the locality in increased carbon emissions. Looking at slide 4, please, at the vehicular trip generation. This property has a PTAL score of 0 as per the transport assessment report. Clearly, public transport is not a very viable or convenient alternative. Care home staff and visitors will have to rely on their own private vehicles, thereby increasing the vehicle trips. The nearest shops are 15 minutes away or by foot, or a bus or a car ride away. Moreover, there are no state schools for children age 11 plus in Northwood. The nearest schools are Northwood Hills, Pinner or Watford. Not only will this give rise to more vehicle trips, but is this location even an appropriate location for a care home for 12 and 16-year-olds? And last slide, in conclusion, there is a real profound and extensive opposition and concern from the residents to this proposal, which does not comply with the local plan. As the Hillingdon Council's motto goes, we request you to put residents' interests first over the interests of a for-profit company. This will completely alter the fabric of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Before you return to your seat, I'll ask any councillors who'd like to ask you a question. Does anybody else want to ask the petitioner a question? No? Okay, you may take your seat. Can you turn the microphone off for me, please? Thank you. I believe we have the applicant, Diane. I will not even try to attempt to pronounce your surname, but maybe you can tell us how to pronounce it, because I don't want to be rude. So if you'd like to come to the table. Okay. Sorry, can you pronounce your surname for me so I don't get it wrong?
So we are a group of 4 directors.
Okay, fine. It's all right then. Sorry, then I don't have to worry about that then. So whenever you're ready, just press the microphone. As you heard before, you have 5 minutes and 4 minutes on green and 1 on amber and then red. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We would like to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to share our views before making a decision on this matter. We are grateful to address you this evening. We would like to reassure everyone that the directors of the Children's Home possess extensive experience working with children and families. Collectively, we have over 35 years working in various capacities within social care. Our experience demonstrates our commitment to promoting the welfare and safeguarding of children. We also have insights and the ability to understand what contributes to the positive outcomes for children looked after. We understand the journey of the child and often the trauma they have experienced before coming into care. Children looked after come from diverse cultures and backgrounds and for various reasons are unable to live with their birth families. Therefore, we have made it our responsibility to ensure they have the opportunity to thrive, find happiness and lead fulfilling lives. Our goal is to provide children looked after with practical and emotional support to help them map out a clear route to a prosperous, independent future. New Chapters homes are driven to ensure that the children in our care feel valued and safe, and we aim to give them a childhood where they are no longer experiencing significant harm. We have reviewed all the information shared within the petition and hope you have had the opportunity to review our response to the objections. We empathise with the local residents in relation to the concerns that they have raised. We recognise that the unknown can be daunting and create some trepidation and anxiety. The petition referenced children looked after being linked to an increase in antisocial behaviour and an increase of personal risk in the neighbourhood. In our professional capacity, it is our experience that children who are looked after are often vulnerable themselves and do not present a greater risk to the immediate adults or children around them. With the right support and environment, they can have the same outcomes as children who are not in care. New Chapters Home would like to reiterate that we wish to work with the local residents and not against them, to try and dispel the idea that children looked after are essentially problematic and that their presence in the community will have a detrimental impact. Our intention is not to disrupt the local community, as we understand this will not benefit either the children or the residents. New Chapters Homes hopes that the integrated into the community will provide children in care with the opportunity to experience a safe and nurturing childhood. We would like to take the opportunity to highlight the experiences of these children and their journey before arriving into a residential placement, to provide a deeper understanding amongst the committee, elected councillors and local residents. We have prepared an account of the lived experience of a child currently living in a children's home. Please note that the identity of this child has been anonymised.
My name is Lily and I'm 12 years old. I feel scared at home sometimes and don't always know how the adults in my life are going to treat me. I'm worried about being at home, but I don't want anyone to know. Every night I would lie awake, dreading the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. They told me to keep quiet, blaming me for everything, so I stayed silent at school. At school I watched other kids laugh, feeling like there was a wall between us. I pretended everything was okay, even though I was falling apart inside. One day, a teacher noticed how I flinched when someone touched me. She kept asking me questions, showing kindness I hadn't felt in a long time. Eventually, I broke down and told her everything. I was terrified she would blame me, but she didn't. She held my hand and told me it wasn't my fault, that I was brave for speaking up, and that's when I met my social worker. I moved in with a foster family, but they didn't understand me, and I felt uncomfortable in someone else's home. I hurt myself and ended up in hospital. My social worker told me after that it would be difficult for me to be given a placement with a foster family again. I felt like it was my fault and that I didn't deserve anything good. I was moved to a children's home and was really scared when I saw the house. I'd never been in a house this big and quiet. I didn't feel like I belonged in this home or the area, and I wanted to run away when I first got there, but I knew I couldn't go home to my family. I was given a key worker who helped me feel a little bit more at home, and I was able to have my own room and choose what colour the room would be. Now things are still hard, but I'm not alone anymore. I'm learning that my past doesn't define me and that I deserve to laugh and be happy too. I now have adults around me that I can trust at the home, but I miss my home and hope to go back one day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very moving. Councillors, do you have any questions for Councillor Chandau and then Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for that. Numbers in terms of staff. I'm getting a bit confused. If you could just clarify for me, what kind of numbers are we expecting in terms of, I won't say worst case scenario, but your busiest days? So, because here you say you have a staff ratio of 2 to 1, along with a senior manager, and then on the next line you put down you've got a senior manager and 3 workers on site during a day, so that's 8 on days with a potential 4 children and 6 on nights. But with a staff ratio of 2 to 1, my maths works out as 13 on days and 12 on nights. Would that be correct in that?
I think, just to answer, we have the capacity for 4 children. The likelihood of having 4 children in the home is very slim. We have to think about matching, we have to think about the child's needs. When we do not expect to have no more than 4 staff members in the day, and that includes a senior management.
Sorry, Chika. You're applying. We make decisions, as the chair said, on what is presented before us. What is presented before us is 4 children as a maximum.
Yeah.
So if we go over as a maximum, this is what we expect. So I understand what you're saying, that you're not going to have more than 2 children, but on the application it says up to 4, and as the residents have already said, and it's one of their concerns is the amount of journeys, and I think with a peak hour value of 0, it means everybody will be coming by, I imagine, car or bike. So that's why I'm asking that question, because you've asked for 4, there's 4 children. Would I be right in saying 13 on days and 12 on nights if you had 4 children?
due to the complexity of the children that we will have in our care, it is unlikely that we will have up to 4 children at one time. We will be matching...
Excuse me, please, no one interrupts the petitioner.
It would be important to make sure that from the time we receive the first young person, any additional young people have to be matched, so we would go through a matching criteria. So, for instance, if we had a young person already who had a high level of need and needed 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, it is very unlikely that we would then be able to take on another child, because we would want to focus on that child, and we would have the staff available for that one child. So, yes, we have the capacity for up to 4, but our experience tells us that matching and ensuring that a risk assessment is done before the young person arrives, while the young person is there, will be crucial to ensuring that we can meet that young person's needs.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for speaking as well. My question was just on the parking, which was on page 20 of the report, and the petitioner picked up on it. I don't know if we could flick back to the slide just for the visual. I think it was only a few slides back. That's the one. So, with the plan, if a car is parked in Bay 1, it looks pretty impossible that a car is going to be able to park in Bay 4. And it's also going to be quite difficult if Bays 1, 2 and 3 are full for a car to get into Bay 5. And also pretty difficult, I would say, to get in and out of Bay 3. I just was sort of keen to get your understanding of like what was the process in terms of the planning, the parking provision. Was there better alternatives that could have been considered in terms of being able to get more car parking capacity, or actually getting 5 usable spaces?
I would like to say that I think when we're thinking of parking, if let's say we had 3 people parked and somebody needed to park in Bay 1, we will all know each other, and it would be as simple as moving for a parking for the car to park. It wouldn't be that difficult in my eyes, because it would just be like a family home. If you had a space where there was more cars and you happen to double park, just knowing that whoever's in the home is somebody that you know, that you can comfortably ask to move so you can go.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mann, I didn't see your hand up. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for speaking. I just wanted to still extend on what Councillor Chandal said, because I'm still not very clear. In terms of the capacity for up to 4 children, if you did manage to get 4 children, I know you've gone through this whole process of they have to be matched, etc. But if you, let's say you had 4 children in this facility, how many staff would you need?
If we had 4 children, it would have to be 4 children with low-level needs, where they can have one-to-one worker.
Or no workers. So children come with different complexities. So you can have some children with behavioural difficulties where they may struggle with sleeping at night. A child like that who's able to function in the day and attends education, whether that's virtually or has a one-to-one tutor or attends a state school, they wouldn't require a one-to-one member of staff. If we did have children of that nature, potentially that could be up to 4 children, and then we would only need 2 to 3 members of staff to manage those children in the day. However, a child with more complexities, we would require potentially 1-to-1, 2-to-1. So it really does matter on the child that we have within the home in terms of bringing any more children into the home. We do not anticipate having more than 2 to 3 members of staff, at most 5 people in the house at the same time. We recognise that a lot of the children that we'll be working with will have emotional difficulties, and they'll need the space and they'll need the quiet as well to work through those difficulties. And the work that we plan on doing with the children will include things such as art therapy, music therapy, talking therapy, and we would need the space to do that. If we had full capacity children with all of those difficulties, it would make doing our work very difficult.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And no one else? Just in case, I'll double check in. If you'd like to turn the microphone off and go and take a seat, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, before I open it to committee, yeah. No, we can't. We have to wait. Before I open it to committee, I've forgotten what I was going to say because you threw me off there now. That's all right. Anyway, I'm going to... Yes. Well, anyway, let's just get on with it, and I'll remember it, and I'll come back to it and everything. So, I'll open it straight to Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. This is one for transport. I mean, what we've heard so far, obviously, the applicant do show that they're experts in children care. What I don't get is experts in other areas of what we're here for in terms of planning. Now, the report from the Highways Officer is okay, it's fine, on balance. Now, myself and other members of the committee are putting up the numbers, and the numbers just don't match. Whether they're, depending on the care that the child needs, even if it's a low-level care, on one-to-one basis, that's four carers, 4 children, 8, plus 1 adult manager, that's 9. That's during the days as a possible minimum, maximum. And at night, it'll be same again. Although it says 2 at night, 2 staff members to do at night. If it's 4 children, 4 carers, that's 8 at night. Now, could we have how that would then translate into, with a P-TAL value of 0, how that would transpire into parking, movement, car movements, etc., and not including visitors and everything else?
Dr. Tilley, would you like to take that?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Firstly, covering off the point of the car parking layout, the Highway Authority would not be able to accept that, and henceforth we've asked for a planning condition that's been explained in the addendum that we would wish the car parking layout to be revised so that it delivers 5 usable car parking spaces. Now, we refer to the development plan to determine how many car parking spaces proposals can provide. The London plan is silent on care homes, in which case we've referred to the local plan. Now, the local plan would require 2 car parking spaces plus 1 space per warden. Now, I've taken it away that there would be 3 wardens, 3 carers, so 2 as a minimum plus 3 gives us 5 spaces. So we take the view that 5 is the maximum amount of car parking spaces that policy would allow. The site would further allow for informal parking, but let's not go there on that one. We then have to think about if the demand for parking exceeded supply, it would result, you might envisage, of cars parking on the street. Now, the road is devoid of any parking controls.
Please, no, hang on a minute. I know I will correct him in a second. Okay, just please, no comments from the floor, please. Thank you, Dr. Tilley.
Thank you. So we have to ask ourselves, what would be the impact of car parking displacement? Would parking stress arise? Would it lead to heightened risk of road safety? Would it lead to traffic congestion? And taking a balanced view, in this location, it would not raise highway concerns, congestion, parking, or road safety.
Please, honestly, enough, okay? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tilley.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, I do know the road well myself. There is some parking restrictions on there, and it's very congested during school times. We're always having issues with residents, and well, I've spoken to the headmaster about this. We'll talk about that another time, but about parents parking across people's driveways. So there is something there. Okay. Councillor Bennett, before you go there, I did remember, because I wrote it down. Yes, on the amendment, there is Councillor Richard Lewis's comments regarding this application on the addendum. Yep. Okay. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. I'll change my question in light of what we've just discussed. For clarity, what is the extent of parking enforcement on the roads nearby? Could we, and I can fill the time it might take to look that up with another question or two. I don't expect an instant response. So I think amongst all of this, I think the one thing that's not been discussed so far is that there is a need nationally, locally, to look after vulnerable children. And I think all of us that haven't had to go through the care system probably take for granted just how difficult the lives of these vulnerable young people can be, and there is a need for more accommodation for it. The challenge here is for us to make sure that it's the right development for the area and that residents' concerns are listened to, and we ask the right questions and get the right conditions. I kind of get the parking that is required will vary. The ratio depends on the level of care that is required from the children. So if you have it with four children, that means that the children don't need as much care, and therefore if you had one, it might be the same number of parking. My question is, can we condition something around that? So is there a way in which we can condition the ratio of parking to the occupancy of the home and the level of need of the children?
I will ask officers that, because very good question. Very good.
I'll just take that. Yeah, just it would seem unreasonable to condition the car parking on the basis of staff numbers. There is a condition on the number of children, maximum of 4. Whether there's a parking management plan, that could be something to consider.
Okay. I think that the applicant hasn't made it very clear about the staffing and with all due respect, obviously, I do actually get what you're trying to say, is that if you have 4 children that are not very vulnerable, you probably only need 3 members of staff, plus the manager at one time, and then the social worker might come or not come and stuff like that. I do get that, but we need to really know how we can make sure that is a condition in a way that I don't want it to be. You're absolutely right, Owen. I don't want it to be onerous over what they're trying to do. I've done a lot of work with care homes as well. When I was a teenager, which is a different thing. But so is there something that we can sort of maybe get a management plan regarding this, so we're actually very clear about what, if X happens, then Y happens, and so on and so on?
Yeah, from my understanding, we could get a condition attached that could secure that.
Okay, then, so that could come back to me as the chairman for approval? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's on the floor for you guys, okay? I'm not going to tell you what you guys have to do. You have to make your own decisions. Any other questions to officers? We're looking up the thing. Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. The part about noise and disturbance, I echo Councillor Bennett's points about the need for these homes, and we've got to remember these are children. They're not adults. These are children we're talking about. Could we have some, in terms of the petitioner has pointed out that the council themselves do not investigate certain parts of noise or disturbance. Is there anything else we can condition that, although the applicant has put down that they're open to meeting with neighbours and et cetera, but is this put down as a condition that they have to do it, or is it just a ad hoc optional thing that they can do or won't do? Should the building be built? The planning application be passed?
We take some legal advice. I think it's very.
No, sorry. I think that's a step too far. Like the previous, like one of the tests, there's 6 tests, and the parking issue is relevant to the its planning, and why we hesitated originally whether it's reasonable or necessary. With this one, I don't think it's necessary. There's other legislation in relation to noise. You shouldn't add on stuff as conditions that is covered by other legislation. For example, the informative about Ofsted or whatever is covered by other legislation. You shouldn't add on something that's not necessary and can be regulated in other ways, in my opinion.
Councillor Bennett.
Very quickly, back to me, Chairman. Thank you. So I'm just steadily going through the different points that the petitioner had raised. Comings and goings. Effectively, this becomes a commercial venture in a residential area. If this was industrial premises, we would maybe have a condition around the loading and unloading times, the time in which lorries and deliveries could happen. Are we able to condition around shift changeover times? So there's a big difference between somebody parking up at 9 p.m. for an overnight shift versus somebody parking up at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, I tend to agree with what you're trying to say. And again, I think the trouble is we've got... If I said what I offered to do before, and the lawyers have told me quite clearly, it's in consultation, it's not for me to approve, okay, is that we can put that in there as well. I just think that there's too many... It's been written in a way that we can't really unpick it unless we sort of keep going and going and going, and it's just like you're pulling this thread and it keeps coming longer and longer and longer. So we need to sort of step back now and say, those are the things that we will say, that with consultation to me about hours of work, how many... I mean, we've done it with other care homes before. We've done it saying that, you know, the changeover would be at 10 o'clock so that it doesn't interrupt with the school run that's at next door or whatever like that. We can come to some sort of conclusion. And I'm sure the applicant would be quite willing to sort of negotiate with us to get that correct. Am I stepping out here anywhere, Jimmy, or am I doing the right thing at the moment?
Again, going back to the test, the two that I'm looking at is how enforceable it is and how precise it is. Yeah, so we need to be precise, and if it's not precise, it's not enforceable, but also the enforceability. So I have concerns. So again, I think we need to hear from the officers in relation to how it matches in and is relevant to this planning permission, which, in all intents and purposes, is like a normal house. I know it's different, and that's why it's a planning permission, but it's not. It's not a 50-room care home or whatever. So we need to be reasonable as regards those conditions.
Yeah. I totally agree with you that we are. I'm not asking for anything at all. I'm just trying to, I just want some clarity and some clear the dust really. Officers, over to you.
I think it'll be difficult to enforce. There isn't a parking management scheme within the street currently that we can prevent them from parking, prevent them from obtaining permits to park on the street. So I think that's pretty much it. Sort of the mechanisms for preventing them from parking aren't there, effectively. It would be just on-site parking.
Sure. So that we're going back to the previous question there. So
the previous questions. I think the parking scheme is on the roads around the corner. If I'm correct, Alan, have you picked any of that out? Because I don't want to, Mike, can I have your mic on, please, Dr. Tilley?
Do apologise, Councillor. The parking restrictions have been provided for road safety purposes. For example, there's double yellow lines on the corners, there's keep clear markings outside the school, and there's speed tables with, again, double yellow lines and a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. So these parking restrictions have been introduced to protect the safety of school children, as opposed to managing parking demand like you get around a tube station, for example. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Just one sec. No, excuse me, please. Okay, there is... excuse me. Honestly, if you can't control yourself, you're more than welcome to leave. Outside the school, obviously that's what you're referring to. There is bays there. I know that because when I went to see the headmaster, I had to pay him one. So there is something outside the school, but what you're saying is not there further down the road. Can you please, Alan, Dr. Steady, I know that it's there, so we need to find out what it's there. Yeah, Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a simple chap. I'm getting rather confused now. I'm getting confused over the numbers of staff.
Can I make a suggestion? Okay. I'll make a suggestion to the committee. What we'll do, and you know it's one of my pet hates, we'll do a site visit, okay?
I was just about to say that.
Okay, so fine.
I was going to do. Can we defer it and do a site, because
we'll do.
I'm a simple chap. I'm getting confused with the numbers. I'm getting confused by the parking. I'm getting confused about a lot of things. And the last thing I want to do is to make a decision on what is. We do it on what's presented to for us. Now, if that information is not quite correct, I'll sooner go back, revisit it, as you said, Chair, and then come to an informed decision rather than a guess.
Okay, that's good. I think that's a good idea. Can I have a seconder for that, Councillor Bennett? Sorry. Yeah, sure, of course you can. Councillor Mann.
Just on the site visit, I'm not sure how the numbers and staff to children ratio can be assessed on a site visit. If it's a parking, if we're looking at a site visit just solely for parking, surely we should have that information here in terms of
unfortunately,
how many bays we've got.
I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help the applicant as well as the residents to feel that we've actually looked at this thoroughly. That the fact is that having a site visit gives a time for the applicant to put the questions that we have asked in some sort of thing, right? So I don't have to be consulted on it. It can come to committee, and we can actually have something a little bit clearer regarding how many officers are on site, how many children, the movement of it. It gives us time also. You don't have to come to the site visit. I'll take some photos for you, and we'll show it at the next committee. But I think that would be quite a clever idea to just, I think is it right?
Sorry, I was going to say, in a way, it's the other way around. The planning, I think the point Councillor Mann is making is the planning reason is that there's not full information in front of members, and as an additional benefit of that would be a site visit that would allow members who want to, who choose to go. And I think that you need the planning reasons, and I think your point is that the site visit is not actually necessarily adding things to do. But certainly the additional information could add in relation to parking and the numbers of staff, which I think is where the crux is.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Jimmy. If we're going to use a site visit to buy some time in that sense and give the applicant a bit more time to be clear with us, or we need to be, then we should be open about that and honest about that, rather than saying we need to do a site visit because we're not sure about the numbers.
No, I've been quite clear when I suggested the site visit. I'm not trying to say, I'm saying as an additional for us to go for a site visit if you wish to see the site, so how close it is. I'm being very crystal clear that we haven't got all the information, and I'm adding the fact that if committee members wish it, they can have a site visit so they can see how it correlates to all that's around it.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
I'm just not sure. I don't agree with the fact that I'm trying to do something underhand here that is...
That's not what I'm implying, but what I'm saying is what Councillor Chamdal says is confused about the numbers from staff to children. At a loss here how we're going to justify that with a site visit.
Because we're going to... the site visit is to make sure that the site... It's just an opportunity for members to have a look at the site. The other stuff will come to the committee. And rather than me using my power and have it come as a consultation to me without you guys here, it's far more undemocratic than for me to make sure that all of things is crystal. It will give us an opportunity, as Councillor Chandel has suggested, as a way of a site visit might help him, it might not, but it's up to you. You're the committee. So I've got it proposed and I've got it.
Sorry, Chair, I did say defer as well. It's a defer and do a site visit.
Yeah.
And so defer in the point that the points that have been raised, which are contrasting between officers and what's been presented. So that's deferring off the actual application, but along with the site visit, which will allow us to actually physically see what's there. You know, so all right, paper's great, pictures are great. You know, there's computer generated ones, but when you actually get to the shop floor and see what's happening, completely different picture.
Okay, Councillor Bennett.
So I had one question, but I just wanted to go back to the other question I had because I don't think I got an answer about the shift times, particularly if the committee are minded to defer a decision. If I was to open up a shop on that site and I wanted staff to come in and out through the night or deliveries, there would be some sort of mechanism to control it. I get that it can't be too restrictive, but it's not unreasonable to say that the night shift starting has got to be on site by 10 p.m. and the early shift starting don't come on before 6 a.m. or something, trying to avoid residents being inconvenienced at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Because, and it's unlikely that the shift times would be like that, but it's something that we should be mindful of and try and condition if possible, without being too restrictive that this is a commercial venture and it does need to operate as well as it can do.
Yeah, so what we're saying is that we want some clarity. Let's just recap, okay? So we want some clarity on how many staff are going to be on site and how the process works, yeah?
Yeah.
We're also going to know what are the times that staff will start at night and what time they'll finish in the morning. Is there anything else?
So my other question was just a quick one. So in the petitioner mentioned the council doesn't investigate domestic noise instances. Would this be classed as domestic? Because it is in some ways, but it's also not in others. So the type of use class, would that warrant investigation by antisocial behaviour if an issue was to arise?
We'll ask Officer Chris, can you?
Yeah, I think legal touched on it earlier, where these sorts of noise issues are dealt with under separate legislation. So there wouldn't be anything within the planning legislation which gave you a description of what domestic noise is. So as it's dealt with outside the planning legislation, we wouldn't be best placed to give you an answer on that. Thank you.
But on a commercial business, there is different rules for noise pollution. Are we saying?
I just said,
I believe so, but I'm not planning lawyer rather than a,
yeah, that's fine.
Noise, but I bet what Chris just said, I think it's
fine.
correct.
Owen, you had something, John?
Yeah, there would be an investigation if there was a nuisance in terms of environmental and acoustic officer can open an investigation. So
okay, and that's different, isn't it, from a commercial? It's different because this is a commercial business in the sense, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, fine. Right. So what we've got on the floor is a deferral because obviously we need further information, and obviously a site visit to those who wish to come and see my Northwood. It's a lovely place. So if I propose and second, can I have a show of hands? Councillor Singh, did you want to ask a question? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. If we agree for the site visit, can we do the site visit on busy time, like the head teachers here, then we can look at the surrounding area, have got enough traffic?
You're more than welcome. If you'd find anywhere to park during the busy time,
that's
would be quite remarkable. But we can do it whatever time. Our officers will come out to email everybody to see what sort of times you want to meet. Okay? Okay, so it's been proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, those for a site visit and deferral to further information? No one? No? Hands on? No? Abstaining? Withdrawing? What? Abstaining? Abstaining? Abstaining. So 3 abstentions and 4 votes for a site visit and deferral. Okay, thank you very much. If I just say to the petitioners, obviously the applicant will be able to speak again. If you need to, I will let you speak again. If you get your 21 signatures again, or whatever you had, all you need is 21. Yeah, I know you did. So whatever you want to do, just make sure you do it again. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. You need to, you need. I appreciate all that. I do appreciate. Okay, well, you can if you have. If you put another submission in, I might be able to see what we can extend the time a little bit. Okay. That's fine. Okay. It's although I love to have an open floor and I love to talk to people, I'm afraid I can't. It's not allowed. Okay. So if you like to leave the room very quietly, that'd be fantastic. Okay. Yeah, please.
So, please, the item is over. We're moving on. We're here to hear planning applications. A decision has been made by the committee. So if you can leave, you're welcome to stay to hear other applications. But otherwise, if you can leave quietly. Madam, if you believe that there's recourse, but not now.
Okay, right. Let's crack on, shall we? Item 7 was withdrawn. Number 8 is 37 Edwards Avenue, and that is Chris. You are presenting that. If you like to
Chairman.
go. Thank you.
Item 8 relates to the proposal for a minor amendment to an existing permission at 37 Edwards Avenue. As set out on page 95 and 96 of the committee report pack, the site benefits from planning consent for the erection of 4 times 2 bedroom dwelling houses. As shown within the description of development, shown on screen now, it is proposed to amend condition 5, which is the approved plans condition, following minor internal and external changes, and also to remove condition 18, which restricts future occupiers from joining the local parking management scheme. Here we have a location plan with the site located within the red line boundary. The site is situated on the western side of Edwards Avenue and previously accommodated a detached bungalow which has since been demolished. The street scene is characterised by a mixture of bungalows and 2-storey houses. Here is a constraints plan. The site is not identified as being subject to any development plan or heritage constraints. However, the site is located within an air quality management area. Here is an existing site plan. Before taking members through the presentation, it is important to note that the assessment of the proposal placed before members for determination is restricted to the proposed amendments and not matters which have already benefited from planning consent. Furthermore, whilst the permission was granted on the 4th of the 4th, 2011, a certificate of lawfulness was submitted with evidence to demonstrate implementation of the 2011 parent permission in order to satisfy condition 1 of this consent. Officers were satisfied with the evidence submitted, therefore the certificate was approved on the 17th of the 7th, 2024. The changes subject to consideration are as follows and are set out on page 92 of the committee report pack. They feature cosmetic changes to the front and side entrances, pitched roof canopies above the entrance to be replaced by flat roof canopies, The addition of ground and first floor side-facing windows, rear-facing bifolding doors constructed to serve the living rooms, minor alterations to the brickwork around the openings, a minor increase in the size of the flat roof on the crown roof profile, the inclusion of rainwater good details, provision of level access for both the external and internal spaces. The shell of the building is to be increased slightly to improve thermal performance in accordance with updated building regulations. Minor internal adjustments to walls and openings to conform with accessible building reg standards, and minor internal adjustments to improve and conform to the nationally described internal space standards. I will take you through the proposed plans in order to assist members with demonstrating the changes in comparison to the approved plans. We have included both the approved and proposed plans within this presentation. So here we have the proposed and approved site plans. The approved site plan is to the right and the proposed is to the left. Here we have the proposed and approved floor plans. Here we have the proposed and approved elevations. You will note that there are additional windows on the side elevation which are high level, obscurely glazed and non-openable at least 1.8 metres above finished floor level. The side-facing panel attached to the entrance doors are also shown to be obscurely glazed. Here we have some proposed sections and a bird's eye view plan. In terms of the assessment of the proposal, it should be noted that the submission of a minor material amendment requires the scheme to be assessed against up-to-date policies. Both the local and London plan have experienced more up-to-date recent updates in both 2020 and 2021 respectively, and this was since the determination of the parent consent. This application proposes amendments which would improve the living conditions of future occupiers in accordance with the nationally prescribed space standards, the local and London plans. In addition, improvements are to be made to increase the levels of thermal performance and accessibility to conform with the most up-to-date building regulation standards. As set out in the committee report, officers do not consider the minor amendments to result in an increase in harm to the character and appearance of the area or to neighbour amenity. Officers note the comments submitted to the LPA during the course of the public consultation, and as mentioned earlier in this presentation, the assessment of the application is restricted to the amendments and not the redevelopment of the site as a whole, which already benefits from planning consent. As set out on pages 88 through to 103, the objections have been taken into consideration where relevant. However, comments relating to density, scale, bulk, mass and form were determined during the assessment of the 2011 consent, therefore do not form part of the consideration of this application. Turning to the proposed removal of condition 18. In accordance with the London plan, maximum parking standards, 3 spaces should be provided to serve the development. The development will be served by 4 on-plot spaces, which exceeds the maximum parking standards. Having reviewed the parent permission, officers do not consider condition 18 to meet the relevant test for imposing conditions, which is set out in the National Planning Practice Guidance. A legal agreement is a more appropriate method to securing mitigation of harm outside of the site boundary. Given that the scheme secures parking levels which exceed the London Plan maximum standards, it is not considered that a legal agreement in this case is required. In summary, the proposal seeks permission for minor amendments which are not considered to result in detrimental harm to neighbour amenity or the character and appearance of the area. The changes would improve the living conditions of future occupiers in terms of accessible standards, internal space standards and the thermal performance of the building. The level of parking is considered to be above adequate to serve the development without creating parking overspill. As such, a legal agreement to prohibit future occupiers from applying to enter the parking management scheme is not considered to be justified. For these reasons, and those set out within more detail in the committee report, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so do we have Mr. Chanda present?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, would you like to speak, sir?
Thank you so much.
Would you like to come and sit down? Whenever you press the red button, you have 5 minutes. Okay. Again, a bit harder. You have to be a bit. There you go.
Good evening, North Planning Committee Chair and fellow panel members. If I may please just start by just making a reference here to one of the applications. It is 65680/APP/2011/36, and that is January 2011. And in regards to the actual petition itself for the application, which is what we're here for today, is 65680/APP/2023 and then 2256. I wish to make a reference, please, that it is with great disappointment that there are only 2 points being mentioned in regards to this hearing and not the full application. And there was a petition that was raised in regards to the application, which FI referred to as July 2023. It is with great disappointment that, like I said, not the full application is being discussed, but residents do and did have a lot of interest in regards to this application, given the history of the site being the last application approved being from 2011, and obviously 10 years later the site being very derelict and untouched, so therefore no construction on there. One of the key points in reference to what's being discussed here is that, and what representatives asked me, is that the parking management scheme should not lose base for surrounding properties, given that this would create more scarcity that's being available by losing these bays. This is regardless of nearby drop curb owned driveway properties. Again, it is a disappointment that obviously the full application is not being discussed, and what I would like to do, please, is ask Councillor Steve Tuckwell, to basically address some other points, please, but I'm open to any questions you may have.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the petitioner? No? 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 Okay, fine. Okay, no, they don't. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take a seat and come back to you.
Thank
you. Okay, do we have the applicant here, Mr. Taylor or Mr. Burkdar? No? You're here. Would you like to have your 5 minutes, sir?
Good evening, everybody. I didn't come to represent myself. I just came to hear and see what the comments around. There's nothing for me to add on what Christopher said.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? No? You may take your seat. Thank you. This is very quick. Councillor Tuckwell, would you like to come and take a seat? You've got only 3 minutes. As an experienced man yourself, you know that you only have 3 minutes, so whenever you're ready.
Yes, certainly. So, Mr. Chairman, councillors and planning officers, so that I fully understand that this evening's application for the development of 37 Edwards Avenue is presented to the Planning Committee on the basis of determining the variation of Condition 5 and the removal of Condition 18 from the parent planning permission that was granted in April 2011. I know better than any that this committee can only determine what is presented in front of it. However, on behalf of residents, which we've got a couple here and I'm sure a few watching online at home, that I'm elected to serve, there needs to be some points raised for public record and for clarification. So whilst this evening's committee can only determine the variations presented in the published agenda pack, residents believe that their opportunity to raise legitimate concerns using the petition process about the overall application has been denied of them. For this reason, I would like to hear from planning officers who might want to outline the following points. So the first being, what was the underpinning logic of granting a certificate of lawful development on the 17th of July 2024? What weight was applied to the planning application document contained within today's application that expressly referenced that the development of the site did not commence until the 1st of May 2014, 1 month after the 2011 planning consent expired? Given that this petition was submitted by residents in September of 2023, expressing concern over the overall development, why was the certificate of lawful development granted before the matter was brought before this committee this evening? Residents believe that the original planning application had expired and that the new application with full adherence to updated planning policies should have been submitted for full determination. Whilst the Planning Committee can only determine the variation and the removal of the conditions this evening outlined in the agenda, I don't need to remind the Planning Committee that not having the ability to determine the full application renders this application devoid of the updated and refreshed planning policies, such as the provision of family homes, electric charging points, air quality and the excessive size of the dropped curb. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for allowing me to raise these points on behalf of my residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckwell. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Tuckwell? No? Thank you very much. You may take your seat, sir. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to officers. There's some clarity that's been said there that we need to address, and then I'll open it to the floor. Ready?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So we accepted an application for a certificate of lawfulness before determining this application, because it became obvious during the process of this application that whether the original application, the one granted in 2011, was extant or not. So the best way to, or the more robust way to address that, was to get them to formalise it and submit an application for us to consider all the information before us, which was done, and that was granted in July this year. So in terms of, I know it was mentioned, the weight given to this current application that we're considering this evening, because the application form does state on there that the dwelling had been demolished in May 2014. This was picked up, I can only assume it was an error, and it was corrected to the date of 1st of April 2014, and that was submitted on the 1st of July 2023. So it has been updated. They have submitted the certificate of lawfulness, so we have considered everything as part of that. Another question was the logic for granting the certificate of lawfulness. So, so the planning permission was granted in April 2011, and that was for the demolition of the bungalow and construction of 4 back-to-back dwellings. So all pre-commencement conditions were discharged, with the exception of condition 18, which we're considering this evening. But condition 1 on that planning permission, it requires the development would have to begin within 3 years of that date, which brings it up to the 4th of April 2014. So in terms of determining whether the development, whether the planning permission had commenced, we needed to evaluate on the balance of probability when the existing bungalow, which you can see demolished there, what date that was demolished, and had it been demolished prior to the 1st of April 2014. So this was the evidence that the applicant submitted for their certificate of lawfulness. So just to clarify what we assess when we're looking at certificates of lawfulness. So paragraph 6 of the MPPG states that in the cases of applications for existing use, if a local planning authority has no evidence itself, nor any from others, to contradict or otherwise make the applicant's version of events less than probable, there is no good reason to refuse the application, provided the applicant's evidence alone is sufficiently precise and unambiguous to justify the grant of a certificate on the balance of probability. So as part of the evidence that they did submit, they submitted a statutory declaration from a local estate agent who stated that the demolition commenced on the 17th of March 2014. The application form also said this as well. A second statutory declaration from the applicant also confirmed when the site was purchased, and that the sale of the site included a demolition method statement which confirmed that the demolition of the dwelling was programmed for the week commencing the 17th of March 2014. The demolition method statement itself was also submitted, and then in respect to the council's own records and whether we had anything that was contrary to this, we did have some building control records from an email received on the 14th of April 2014 which advised that the demolition had already commenced. So while that date is slightly over, it doesn't contradict that the demolition had happened during the week of the 17th of March 2014. So on the balance of probability, we did, I should also point out that it's not standard practice for the council to also consult residents. But we did post letters to 18. Well, it's quite a significant number of residents within the street and the adjoining street to see if anyone had any other evidence that would be contrary to the applicant's version of events, but there was nothing that did contradict it. So on the balance of probability, it was determined that the bungalow was demolished before the 14th of April 2014, and therefore the planning permission is valid and it's extant, essentially. So that's why the application that we're considering this evening is a variation. So we can't revisit things that were already considered in the determination of the original application, only the differences.
Is that clear? Does everybody understand that? Yeah? Good. Sure? Okay, explain to him. Yeah? Okay. Councillor Bennett, you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Two questions. First one, page 116, so this is the appendix. Condition 1, the time limit, says deleted condition. I was just curious as to why that was.
I do know the answer because I did it. Oh, that's right. So it's the time limit one. So when we do the variation, you might update some of because you'll see some of the other conditions it needs to be carried out in accordance with the boundary treatment details approved under, and then it has the reference number. So that time limit condition it has to have commenced within 3 years from the date of the permission. So because it had already been commenced, it's deleted, but it's left like that just so that all the numbering aligns as well.
Thank you. So my other question was just around, condition 18, which is the variation. I'm sure I've seen quite recent applications where we specify that future occupants cannot have access to parking permits if there's a PMS in the street. So I'm just curious as to why we're now kind of saying that this shouldn't be allowed in here. Is it purely because of how it's worded and the evolution of wording relative to plan has come on a lot in a decade? Or is it a change of policy?
It's a combination of a change of policy because I think, Chris did mention in terms of the parking that would be provided as part of the application is 4 car parking spaces for the 4 two-bed units. So 1 parking space for each dwelling. So it's slightly over the London plan requirements. It's a minor over-provision, so that was considered on balance acceptable. And in terms, I guess, of the mechanism, it wouldn't necessarily meet the test of the condition because ordinarily we'd secure it through a legal agreement. So it's, which wasn't done at the time, but that's what we would do now.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Councillor Gale.
Thank you, Chair. Just notice on the history of planning, there's been another process approved in September 2014. What was the difference between the one approved in 2011 and this one? Because I assume the one from 2014 lapsed as well.
Chris?
Yeah, so what you're referring to is the discharge of the conditions related to the application which was approved in 2011. So part of the test which Katie was referring to, in order to demonstrate that the development has been commenced, they will have had to have discharged the pre-commencement conditions, and that was the application which came in 2014 and was approved. Yep.
Okay, so we've heard all of it. Can someone take me away, or Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify, so this was demolished in 2014. So residents have had to endure the boarding, the construction site for an entire decade. I mean, I think, look, I fully respect the petitioner's views and those of Councillor Tutwell, but we're not considering the original planning application, we're just considering the amendments. And as such, I think in the spirit of moving this forward and taking this eyesore away from residents who live nearby, I'm happy to go with officer's recommendation for approval.
Okay, thank you. So I have a proposer. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Keith. Councillor Burrows. I was going to call you Councillor Keith, but Councillor Burrows. You seconding?
I second that, Chairman.
Thank you. So
forward.
I'm proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands those in favour with this application? Okay. Councillor Garrick, you're against? Yeah? Okay, fine. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for and 1 against. Yeah, that's been approved. Thank you. Right, so swap of chairs. Oh, you can do it for them? Right, okay. You're a brave man, Alan. You're a brave man. Okay, so whenever you're ready, Alan. Number 9, Atlas Lodge.
I'll give those some time to get out, will I? Or crack on?
Crack on.
Crack on. This application site is the land off Thompson Road and St Luke's Road. The application is for a change of use from use class C2 to use class C3 to change from 72 assisted living units to 72 residential units for primary occupiers over 55. 100% of the 72 residential units would be affordable and secured in the legal agreement. Here's the location plan showing the site with St Andrews Road to the south and St Luke's Road to the north. And then the constraints plan, the site's designated for new homes as part of St Andrews Park, and it's within Uxbridge Town Centre, Uxbridge Town Centre's hotel and office growth location. Here's just the applicant's location plan at a larger scale for further context. The next couple of slides then are just the floor plans. A key point is that the building has been completed as previously approved in 2019, as you'll see in some site photos later on in the presentation, but the building has yet to be occupied. There are no construction works proposed beyond the installation of additional cycle parking spaces, mobility scooter storage and charging facilities for those scooters, and some minor landscape works. There are no public representations submitted for this application. Internal and external consultees have not raised any objections, and notably the Council's housing team fully support this proposal, stating that it is critical to meeting the Borough's housing needs. Similarly, the Council's planning policy team supports this proposal. Here's a bird's eye of the site while it was being constructed, and here it is now on-site constructed, so this is just towards the rear of the building. Oops, and there's the frontage there at the corner of St Andrews Road, and again here along St Andrews Road. And this is from inside the apartment building, from the upper floors. And then my last slide then showing the kitchen and shower room of one of the units. So just to conclude, the officer's recommendation is to grant subject to conditions and legal agreement. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think so. We need to spend too much time on this. Really very good development. Looks great. Meets all our policies. Especially affordable houses, the volume of affordable houses, that sticks out like a sore thumb, which I think is very, very good, where we normally get 3 or 4 in a development of about 1,000. I think this is very good, and I think I'll go forward with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. So been proposed. Who's seconding? Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. On second, I think this is a good opportunity for the local rights.
Brilliant development, yes. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman.
You've got a question?
Just a couple of questions, if
That's
I may.
fine. No.
So this is in
we
my
don't
ward.
We don't want to say we're not democratic here. Go on, there you go.
So this is in my ward. I know the site well, and it has been the kind of mystery empty block for 2 years, that nobody knows what's happening to it, and it's all modern and built. And to be honest, I wish I was over 55. They look nicer than my flat. Just a couple of questions. So one was around this kind of vague definition of primary occupants. So we're saying that it would still be restricted to people over 55, or primarily, and if so primarily, what's the threshold? Is it that we are now saying that if somebody over 55 wanted to move in with their child, that would be deemed permissible because primarily it is for the target audience?
Legal might want to chime in, but on the previous approved scheme, there was a similar arrangement in the legal agreement, which had a primary occupier restricted to the person needing the assisted living. So it would work in much the same way as it did for the previous application approved in 2019.
Does anybody want to chime in over there? It's a lovely saying. I like it. I do like it. Councillor Bennett, anything else?
It kind of answered. My second question was just on parking. So there are lots of issues with parking on St Andrews Park. It's a private estate with some adopted roads. But I guess if the application is approved and the nature of the type of people living there is not due to change, then my question about parking is not valid.
So you've answered your question yourself. Right. Okay. So I'm proposed and seconded. Can we have a show of hands those in favour with this application? It is unanimous. We have a unanimous tonight. Well done. Okay. So we go on to item 10, St Margaret's Avenue.
That would be me, Chairman.
Chris, off you go.
Thank you. This application relates to 3 Margaret's Avenue. It's being presented to members for determination. It is indicated in the application form that the applicant is related to a member of staff associated with the planning department. The application seeks householder planning consent for the conversion of the roof space to habitable use, the raising of the roof ridge, construction of 4 side dormers and 1 side roof light. 1 further window is proposed within the front elevation at roof level and also the rear. Here is a location plan. The site comprises of a single-storey bungalow located on the northern side of St Margaret's Avenue. As shown on the constraints plan, the site is not subject to any policy or environmental constraints. Here is another version of the location plan. Here is the existing block plan. The dwelling is reasonably well set back from the front site boundary, and the front garden comprises of an area of hard sanding with some soft landscaping and an existing tree in the front garden. The rear garden provides a good level of private amenity space to serve the property. Here are the existing and proposed front and rear elevations. The roof ridge would be raised by approximately 1 metre in height. These are the existing and proposed side elevations. The proposed elevations illustrate that 3 modest scale dormers are proposed in the eastern roof slope and 1 modest scale dormer and a roof light proposed within the western roof slope. These, in combination with the 1 metre raise in ridge height, would provide adequate space for 2 additional bedrooms, a small study and a bathroom. Importantly, a street scene elevation has been provided to illustrate how the scale of development would appear within the context of the adjacent properties. It is clear from the drawing that the raising of the ridgeline would not appear overly dominant, given that numbers 1A and 1B located to the west benefit from a similar height and roof pitch. Here is a bird's eye aerial image of the site. You'll note that there are similar examples of side dormers within close proximity to the site. I will point, because I'm not sure if this cursor works, but you've got some here and some just to the right-hand side of the dwelling. Here is an image of the frontage of the site. You'll note 1B directly next door, and here's just a closer image of the site. I'll just take you back to this. In terms of the assessment, local plan policy DMHD1 states that extensions to the roof should normally be placed to the rear of the property. However, given the modest scale of the dormers, the fact that they are adequately set down and set in from the roof margins, and more importantly, the presence of side dormers within the immediate context, the proposed loft extension would not appear out of character or overly dominant within the street scene. In terms of the residential amenity, the side-facing dormer windows would be obscurely glazed and would be non-openable 1.8 metres above floor level. Therefore, there are no windows which would have direct views into neighbouring windows within a 21-metre distance. With regards to the rear-facing window at loft level, this would offer oblique views across neighbouring rear gardens. However, such overlooking is general and mutual between most residential properties of a two-storey scale. As such, there are no overlooking or privacy concerns raised by officers. In terms of other matters, sufficient parking is provided to serve the property. Both internal and external space conform with the minimum space standard requirements. The proposal would involve the loss of a cherry tree in the front garden. Whilst this is regrettable, the tree is not covered by a tree protection order, and due to its position, obstructs natural daylight into the front-facing rooms. As such, no objection is raised to the removal of the tree. However, a condition is proposed to ensure that a replacement tree is planted, as well as securing a landscaping scheme for the site frontage, which integrates with the surrounding context. Taking these points into consideration, and those set out in more detail within the committee report, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, I'll open it to the floor straight away. Who's going to take me away? Councillor Chandler?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just a strange street because the buildings there, I know it well. Even the road next to it, McCorber's, the heights of the buildings, the overlooking and everything else, it's a strange outlook because the houses on 1 and 1A are completely, they're not bungalows, they're two-storey houses. So I think the street scene doesn't come into it. I think the only thing they said was the conservatory not shown on the plans. But apart from that, I really can't see any issue here, and I'll go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. It's on proposed. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Bennett.
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. So on proposed and seconded, can I have a show of hands those in favour of the officer's recommendation? That is unanimous. So the last two is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Thank you, officers. Thank you, councillors, for coming out tonight. And I'll let Ryan turn us off